Greetings, this is Ron Smalek, and I'm reading Mockingjay, which is the third book in the Hunger Games series by Suzanne Collins. What follows are my thoughts chapter by chapter. Alright, and my notes on chapter 3 and 4 are not going to be quite as extensive. In chapter 3 we see Prim starting to grow up and having more adult conversations with Katniss. We find out a little bit more about the strict nutrition science that's going on in District 13. Basically, you're given exactly enough calories that you need to make it to the next meal, no more, no less. It sounds like that's part of the food rationing, but also just part of the population control in general. Katniss and Gale basically make a list of demands that Katniss will ask for in order to become the Mockingjay. And this was pretty interesting. I don't know if this was intentional, but when Katniss says that she wants to be the one to kill President Snow, the leader of District 13, whose last name happens to be Coin, says, "I'll flip you for it." And I thought that was an interesting little joke, as, you know, alluding flipping a coin. Katniss doesn't react to it, so I don't know if that was intentional or if that was just a coincidence, but I caught that. Katniss recognizes Cinna's designs in her Mockingjay uniform, which is nice that he is, he's obviously not in District 13, but his legacy is still being felt, and it comforts Katniss that he's had a hand in her destiny. And then we find out that Plutarch has a key that can get him into some areas that others can't. I'm wondering if that will be useful later. And in room 3908 of this District 13 complex, we find Katniss's prep team that is basically being held and abused at the moment. So now in chapter 4, it got me thinking about the prep team, which is not abbreviated this way in the book, but if you think about it, they're called the preps. Now, when I went to school, there were different cliques. There were, you know, the skinheads and the jocks and the nerds and the cheerleaders, etc. And there was this group of kids called the preps. And they were the preppy kids who would always wear collared shirts. Basically, I think the term comes from kids that would go to prep school and typically have a little bit more money. But the preps were kind of like the goody two-shoes kids that were, you know, thinking they were above everyone else. And I thought it was interesting that you could call the Capitol or Katniss's prep team the preps, because they're obviously the high fashion kids or high fashion adults in this world. Katniss is given another tracker that she wears when she goes out hunting with Gale. That was one of her conditions of being the Mockingjay, is that she gets at least 2 hours. I forget if it was per day or per week, but she gets 2 hours outside of the district. And it just made me think, gosh, how many trackers and how many people are keeping track of her whereabouts? And it begins to weigh on her. It's been weighing on her for a while, but it begins to come out very presently in the dialogue that there are all these groups that just want something from her, and she's a huge pawn. You know, everyone wants something else from her. I think it's an interesting conflict to where she started off in the very first book, thinking that she owes everyone else because they're trying to help her. Here it's the opposite. Everyone's trying to use her. And I think she will also evolve again shortly. Now, if Katniss basically backs out of this set of rules as the Mockingjay, though, the President Coin, or not President Coin, but the leader Coin of District 13 basically says that this whole deal is going to be off. And Katniss knows that her friends are going to be in danger despite everything she's done to this point. That's it for my notes on chapter 3 and 4. Very short and very quick this time.